From the beginnings of the Methodist movement, John and Charles Wesley saw the importance that the laity played in the life of our church and the work of our church together. And so all these years later, we continue to celebrate Laity Sunday with leadership provided by laity within the church. I'm thankful to Courtney and David and Kate and Scott and Jennifer for leading in the service today, but also want to introduce to you now Leah Taylor. Leah and I, we've known each other for years. We have served on all different conference committees together. She has been the lay leader for the Texas Annual Conference. She has been a delegate to the Jurisdictional and General Conference of the United Methodist Church. She's been a delegate to the World Methodist Conference. She serves on the District Committee on Ministry over in the Southwest District. She is on the Council on Ministries at Memorial Drive United Methodist Church and a part of their visioning committee. So she has had a long life in the leadership of the laity in the United Methodist Church, and for that we're all grateful. Mostly I'm just happy to count her and Tom as friends and know that you all will have a great message from her today.
Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. I'm not sure when I first realized that mountains are my happy place. My first mountain experience was the year I was 10. I went to summer camp outside of Fort Davis, Texas, right down the road from the McDonald Observatory. Part of the camp experience was horseback riding, and not just riding in the corral, but being assigned a horse that was mine for the whole 4 weeks I was there. For half a day each day, we rode our horses out around the mountain trails, through pastures, and into and around Fort Davis. We learned how to walk, trot, and gallop, as well as riding the barrels, just like in the Houston Rodeo. On the back of a beautiful Palomino horse named Little Dimples, I was in heaven. This is the first time in my life I can remember feeling so happy that I might burst. At the time, I thought it was the horses that made me feel that way. I love horses. After all, they are just like great big loving dogs who like to have their ears scratched. I came to know and love the horses I rode over my 5 years at camp, and I like to believe that they felt the same way about me. Each evening we climbed the hill behind the cabins for an evening devotion time. I don't remember anything that was said, but in my mind, I can see the last rays of the sun setting behind the mountain. I can see the first stars appear in the dusky night sky. And I can feel God telling me to be at peace. Not in words, of course, but I think that was the first time that I experienced the peace that passes all understanding. Or maybe it was just being a 10-year-old who was happier than she'd ever been. Fast forward many years when my husband Tom and I started planning vacations. We made many trips to many different mountains. When our daughter was almost 10, I convinced Tom that we should go skiing. Neither of us were skiers, but I wanted her to be able to go on the church youth ski trip and not be the kid who had never skied. I was that kid, and it was no fun. Tom and I were abysmal beginner skiers, but our daughter caught on fast, and as a family, we were hooked, which meant many more trips to mountains. After several ski years, we found that we loved the summer in the mountains as much as we liked the winter. Annually, we made our pilgrimage from Houston to Colorado. Each summer, the three of us and our dogs packed the car and headed west. We took our daughter's friends. We had family friends meet us there. Our families came. It was the best. We hiked, we played mini golf, we did jigsaw puzzles, fished, played games, went tubing down the river. We just had good times. I was always up before the rest of the crew, drinking my tea and watching the mountains during sunrise and feeling that peace like a river. There's a place at the top of the ski mountain, just right at the top, where you have to choose which way you're going to go down. If you go to the right, there are runs that take you to the base without having to work too hard. But if you go straight ahead, you will see nothing but trees. There is no easy or even moderate run on that side of the mountain. In fact, there aren't really any runs initially, just places between the trees where you make your own way down into the back bowl. It's great fun when you get the hang of it, but it is pretty daunting the first few times. When we go that way, I am always the last one down because right there at the top, I go to one specific space. The snow is special, but looking up, you are in a sanctuary of trees. For me, it's magical. It may be my favorite place on the face of the earth. Each time I stop, I can hear the quiet and feel God's presence surrounding me. When I find myself anywhere in need of strength and peace, that is the place I go to in my mind, right there into the trees where I can see my breath and feel the loving arms of God lift me up. Just as I became a skier as an adult, I became a Christian as an adult. It was quite a journey for me. It started as a college student, and I was welcomed into the United Methodist Church. But it took years for me to accept Christ. It took being shown a great deal of love and care from people who I already trusted and knew me, people who had lived their faith but had never tried to thrust it upon me. It was a process. When I first began to study our faith, I was totally insecure. I was taking Disciple 1, and I was a brand new Christian trying to figure out everything. I wanted to learn to talk about Christ in ways that didn't put people off, didn't make them feel threatened if their beliefs were different than mine, because I had been on the receiving end of just that kind of an attempted conversion. I was struggling to make heads or tails out of the New Testament, trying to fit Jesus into what I knew of the Old Testament, and it's hard. It's hard to read, hard to understand, and it's hard to find a way to live into it. Fortunately for me, I was surrounded by wonderful people who walked with me and helped me understand. Because really, if we can't understand our faith, how can we live it? In the book of Ruth, we see an extraordinary laywoman living her faith. Ruth has come to love her mother-in-law, Naomi, so deeply that she will not leave her. Even though she knows that the future for her with Naomi's family may not be so great. It took courage along with her faith for Ruth to leave her native land, her family of origin, and go with Naomi. But she goes willingly, accepting Naomi's family and faith as her own. As lay people, it's crucial that we figure out how to live our faith in public because we are the face of Christianity to the world. Now, when I think about taking my faith public, when I consider sharing my call, it makes me very nervous. But one of the things that I've learned in the past few years is that even though I'm not ordained, God does have a call on my life and on yours. Each of us has our own story, whether you found your faith as an adult or grew up with it. Your story is unique. So how we each talk about it will be unique as well. As we each try to live our faith in front of God and everybody, we do it differently. And even though we all live our faith differently, it really is a group project. You just can't do it alone. Today, we all have friends and acquaintances who do not take time out for Sabbath, at least like many of us do. Perhaps you know people who worship on Sunday mornings in the parking lot of NRG Stadium, waiting for the game to begin. Or you probably know people who come to Christmas and Easter service, not because they are drawn by the meaning of those days, but because that's what they did when they were children. Or maybe you know someone who feels like the church betrayed them. Like Ruth, we need to go willingly, even joyfully, into a world that really needs Christ, but may not want to have anything to do with Christianity. And really, who can blame them? So much of the news these days about Christians is terribly unflattering. And I'm not just talking about the United Methodist Christians. I mean the whole Christian community. We have seen one scandal after another in some of our sister denominations. Our newspapers cover examples of greed and abuse of power from folks who proclaim themselves to be Christian leaders. We see discrimination, racial bias, financial misdeeds. The list goes on and on. Following this news, someone could reach the conclusion that we Christians are just human. We make mistakes. So, of course, we need God in our lives every day. So you may be wondering when I'm going to get to the point and tell you how to live our faith well the way we believe God is calling us. How I wish I had a formula that would get each of us to the place we're working toward, but you know I don't. Each of us must come to that ourselves. However, I want to share with you just a few things that I've been doing which have helped me. With the onset of COVID, I've had to live my faith in a different way, like all of you. A lot of it has been over the phone, on Zoom calls, or worshiping online, and I've spent a lot more time alone, reading, grappling with my faith, how I live it, and how I'm going to love it. I hope that some of my new practices will help me be more articulate in sharing my faith. A small group of 4 lay women, a few of whom are here this morning, decided to study together. We've watched a video series which explored religions other than Christianity, as well as branches of Christianity which we didn't know much about. We've listened to some great podcasts. We've read some books by Diana Butler Bass, Mike Mather, and Richard Rohr. We've even invited a couple of guest speakers who could help us unpack some of what we were learning. We have built ourselves a learning community. I also started attending a contemplative worship service online. I hadn't really experienced contemplative worship. I didn't think it would be for me because, well, as many of you know, I am a talker. But somehow it really appealed to me. I began learning to enter my relationship with God quietly, without lots of words, and with some personal intention. These 30 minutes once a week became a faith anchor for me. I found myself ready to admit that I need God and I need to make myself more available. In my journal, I wrote, "This was a soft, gentle invitation to let go and a reminder to admit that there is no way for me to be perfect." Journaling is something I hadn't ever done before, but I do it now. Not every day, but regularly. Reading Richard Rohr and Terry Hershey has sent my mind in directions it hasn't gone before. It's invited me to look at the concept of urgency differently. It's helped me grieve some of the losses we've experienced. I've read some beautiful poetry written by authors I hadn't known. I've learned how to be a bit more compassionate, both with others and with myself. So here, I'll share just a few thoughts from what I've learned that might help you and me live and share our faith with those who do not believe the same things we do. Be open. Start conversations, but listen more than you talk. If you listen long enough, you'll have a chance to talk. Leave your judgment in the other room. Be compassionate with yourself as well as with others. Accept people where they are. Don't take anything personally. And more important, if you're ever in doubt, go to the mountains. Amen.